Hi, I'm Jason, and welcome to the Intro to Scraping webinar today. Basically, the class is for people that have never scraped before. They want to try and collect data. They don't know how, and that's what today's class is for. You don't need to know any programming or anything like that. This is some pretty basic browser plugins that make scraping pretty easy. So before we get started, I just want to say there's an accompanying PDF that has everything that I'm talking about today. So if you get lost or if you want to go back for reference, it's there. Everything that I say today is in the PDF. All right, so let's get started. In order to scrape, you actually do have to know some HTML. And that's just basically because you have to be able to tell this specific piece on this web page is what I want. In order to do that, you have to use some HTML syntax to get to that point. So before we get into scraping, we're going to do some intro to HTML. So if you've never done it, I have some links here in the PDF that I recommend. I'm going to give a quick overview, but I recommend maybe also checking out these links just to give you a little more exposure. So the first thing we're going to go through is some tags. And tags is basically how they mark up the text, which is, if you think of an example like in a text editor, like Word or Google Docs, you go to do bold or italics. Basically all that's doing is that you'll highlight the text, and then when you click bold, it's putting a marker before the text and at the end of the text, which then says everything in between is bold. So with HTML, it does the same thing, and they call these markers tags. There's an opening tag and a closing tag. So the first thing I want to do is go through all these different tags, or not all of them, some of them. So let's get going. So first tags, these are all going to be pretty basic. P for paragraph, table for a table, TR is for a table row, and TD is for a table cell. A is for a link. Now some of these aren't direct, perfect correlations. I'm sure whoever created it had some reasoning behind that, but they're not always obvious. Div just stands for a generic block of content. It's just like saying, here's a container of something. It doesn't have to have any formatting assigned with it. It's just a general block. And basically it's there because HTML web developers use it a lot to add styling or interaction, and you're going to see that a lot later. So we have two types of bullet lists. We have the unordered list, or just a bullet list, and we have the OL tag, which is ordered list or numbered list. And then inside the list for each actual list item is the LI tag for list item. Then you have your basics, B for bold, U for underline, I for italic, and then IMG for image. All right, so let's get into it and show you what this actually looks like. So if you can see here, this first tag, this is just a general paragraph tag. So you have an opening P tag and then the closing P tag. So basically an HTML tag starts with the less than greater than sign with the tag in between. And then the closing tag is the exact same thing, but it has a slash. So anything between it, that HTML tag applies to. It's like in this case, we're making a paragraph with this one line of text. So the thing with tags is you can nest tags within tags. So if you think about it like in a text editor, you can highlight a whole sentence as bold, and then you can then highlight some of the words in that sentence as underlined. So you're basically nesting tags inside of each other. And so here's an example. We're starting with the P tag, and then we have a U tag, so we're saying, okay, now we're going to underline everything. We have some text. Then we have a B tag, so we're saying, okay, now we're going to bold it too. And then we have the closing tags. So it can be a little confusing when it's all together like that, so don't worry about it too much yet. But right here, this is a paragraph. This is how it actually gets rendered on the browser. Okay, so that HTML above gets rendered into something more pretty. So let's get a little more complicated. Lists. So with lists take two tags. The first tag is what kind of list you're going to do. Whether it's an unordered list, which is just the bullets, or if it's an ordered list, which is numbers or letters. So in this case, we're doing an unordered list. So you start with that, And then inside that unordered list, you're going to have li tags for each of your items in the list. So I'm indenting here. Many web developers do this just to make it easier to say, okay, oh, I have a main list, and then over here it's all my list items. It just makes it easier to see that these list items belong to this list. So we have our opening UL tag, then we have our li tag for item 1, li tag for item 2, and then a closing UL tag. And then this here is what it actually looks like when it gets rendered. Alright? And so if we would change this, if we just change the UL to an OL to get numbers, it's basically the same thing as going into the list and just saying, okay, I want a numbered list, and now we have numbers. That's all you have to change. Next, tables. Tables get a little more tricky because you have the table tag, then for each row in the table you have a TR tag, and then for each column in the table you have a TD tag. So it's a lot of nesting. So let's go through it real quick. So opening table tag, then we have a TR tag for our first row, and this row has 2 columns because we have these 2 TD tags. So the text is row 1 cell 1 and then row 1 cell 2. Then this first table row closes, and then we start with the new one, and then we have 2 more columns. Okay, then they close the row and they close the table, and when that gets rendered, it'll look something like this guy here. Alright, so we just created a table of 2 rows and 2 columns, and that's what the syntax looks like. Now, I'm going kind of quickly here. Don't worry about whether or not you have to be able to build this. You don't. You just have to be able to recognize the HTML syntax so that when you're building the scraper, you can properly tell the scraper, like say if I want this right here. So what that means is you want to give the table TR TD tag here. Okay? So don't worry about having to build it, you just have to know how to recognize it. So the last tag I want to go through is the link tag, which starts with A. And a link is slightly different than like a paragraph or a bold tag because it actually has 2 data points. One is the URL of where you want to go when you click on it. The other one is just the text that you want to show to the page, like click me, something like that. So to do that, the link tag has an href attribute, and that's where you stick the URL. And then in between the A tags is where you actually stick the text that you want to show on the web page. So for instance, if this A tag was rendered, it would show this go to Forset like this. And if you click on it, then you have the link of going to Forset G. Alright. It is possible if you want to, you can show, if you want to just show the actual URL, then you have to put the URL twice. Once in the href tag and then again here. But again, that's up to the web developer and how they build it. Final thing, mail tos or emails. Emails is very common for something to scrape for, to gather email addresses for whatever reason. And email addresses are typically part of a link, because usually you can click on them, then it opens up the email editor and you can send them an email. And so the way that is notified in HTML is the URL starts with this mail to. So it's mail to and then the email address. So if an email address is a link, it's always going to start with the mail to. Alright, so that's one easy way to try and test, or not test, to select everything on a page. Like if you just want to get all email addresses, you can say, give me all links that have mail to in it, and you'll get everything. The next piece is 2 attributes called class and ID. Now these attributes are typically used by web developers to say, I want to apply a specific style or some kind of interaction to this HTML element, like a button or a link or an image or whatever. And when these class or ID attributes are part of the code, it makes scraping much easier because it makes our lives easier to pinpoint exactly the data we want. But unfortunately, these class and IDs are not required. It's just there if we need to use it, and so it's not going to be there. And it varies from website to website, web developer to web developer. So on some websites they're there, some they're not, and it's just an unfortunate case for scraping. So let's see how they're used. An ID tag, if you see here, this table, it's kind of like the href. It's the same kind of format. You say ID equals a name. And so ID and class are both just names, but the names cannot have spaces. So it's just one single word. You can scrunch it all up, just delete spaces if you want. So in this case, the ID is data. For this link here, we have the class of link. For this li, the class is list item. And then for this p tag, we actually have two classes. And because with a class, an ID can only have one value. A class can have multiple values. And with that, you use a space to separate the different classes. So in this case, there are two paragraph classes, item description and big text. Okay? And just to make it clear, these ID and class names, they can be whatever the heck the web developer wanted to call them. It can be X, it can be 1, 2, 3, it can be whatever they want to call it, that's what it's going to be. All right? So the reason why, as I said, IDs and classes are important is because it helps you find and select your data. So let's get into that. All right? So using these same examples up here with table ID data, the way that the selector will work for your scraper, it's going to be table hashtag data. So if you have an ID, when you do a selector, it changes into a hashtag. Okay? So in this case, we had a table element with an ID of data. And so it's going to be table hashtag data. And then with classes, you're using the period, the point. So a class, like in this example for this link here, we had an a tag with a class of link. That is going to be a.link. And then the next example is li.listItem. Now, for this last one, because we had two different classes, we can actually write it three different ways. You can say it's either p.itemDescription or p.bigText, or you can combine them both together and say p.itemDescription.bigText. All right? So it just depends on your selectors, because like this, like say the class of big text might be used somewhere else on the web page. You don't want those other things, you just want this one specific one. And so if you combine it together with p.itemDescription.bigText, then that might give you that specific item you want, and then you're done. All right? Continuing with selectors, so this is just talking about, what we just talked about is just IDs and classes. There's some other helpful ways with selectors to try and pinpoint exactly an element you want to have. Okay, so let's just kind of start from the most basic down to very specific. So let's say, for whatever reason, we just want to get all links on the web page. That's simple. You just say your selector is the A tag, and that's going to go through and give you every single link on the web page. You're done. But let's say that that's not what you want. You want the A tag with the ID of organization. So it's going to go and look for, so you're going to use the A hashtag organization, and it's going to look, and it's either going to find it or it's not. So you're going to either have 0 results or 1 result. But if it was a class, if it was a dot organization, same idea, but because it's a class, it can be used many times on the web page. And so when you use a class name for a selector, you can either get 0 results if they've found nothing, or you can get 1, 2, 3, however many matches there are on the web page. So with an ID, it's either going to be 0 or 1 matches. With a class, it's going to be 0 or however many matches there can be. So the problem with classes is because there can be many items, there's a way to say, okay, out of all of these, I just want this one specific one. And for that, there is this EQ selector. All right? So it would be a.organization colon EQ, and in this case 3. So EQ3 says, out of all the links that have the class of organization, I just want the third one. So EQ says, give me a specific one, and the number says which one you want. So EQ3 says, give me the third one. And as more examples, like in this case, it's TD, which is a table cell. So this is saying, give me the second table cell. And then this LI example is saying, give me the fourth list item. Okay? So this EQ can be very powerful to say, okay, I know there's a lot, like say the list, you might be able to say, okay, here's the list, but it has 20 items. Out of these 20 items, I just want the fifth one. So you can just say LI EQ 5, and then you're done. Okay? The last one I want to talk about is contains. So this is kind of like a filter or a search. So in this case, we're saying we want all links that contains the word email. So what it's going to do, it's going to look inside the A tag, and if it finds the word email, it's going to pick it. So it might have 0 results, it might have 20 results, but as long as it has that word email, it's going to find it. So classes and IDs are very helpful for selectors, but this EQ and contains also gives you a lot of power, so you can pinpoint exactly the data you want to use. All right. So finally, before starting to get into the scrapers, with these selectors, it might be necessary, like, to give it a path. If you think of it as a hierarchy, like you have a table, you have table rows, table cells. The problem is, let's say that there's 2 tables on the web page, and you only care about this one table, you don't care about this other table. So let's say this first table has the ID of data, okay? So you can say, we want the table of data, and in all rows, we want to get the second column, okay? So we would actually have to enter that full path, because if we just do TD EQ2, that's going to say, give me all of the second columns on the web page. I don't care what tables there are. Whether it's 1 table, 2 tables, 20 tables, it's going to get you all of the second columns. That might not be what you want. So when you have like this full path, that also helps you narrow down specifically to the data that you want to get. Okay? So now you might be asking, okay, that's nice. How do I even view the HTML for a web page? Well, there are actually 3 different ways to do it. One is just to press the F12 button. Another way is to do Control-Shift-I, or if you're on a Mac, it's probably Command-Shift-I, or who knows what the Mac is doing. But also you can do a right-click, and to do that, let me open up a quick page. So if you're on a web page, if you do a right click, you'll see this inspect. And different browsers show different things. Like Google is inspect, Firefox, I think it's called inspect element or something like that, but just look for the word inspect. And when you do that, it opens up the same window as it did if you just did F12 or the Control-Shift-I. But the cool thing with doing the right click, like say if I want to look at Google's logo, so if you actually right click on Google's logo, and then click inspect, in the code, it's going to take you directly to the code for that logo. And then when you hover over this code, you can see that it also highlights on the web page what code you're currently looking at. So the right clicking and inspecting can be very powerful to show you exactly where that code is. Because otherwise, let me make this big. So if you see, like, this is the full HTML for just the Google search homepage. And there's all these div tags, there's all this content in here, it just keeps going and going and going. And especially if you're new to scraping, you're gonna get lost in here. I get lost in here, and I've been doing this for like 20 years. So right click is your friend. Like if you want to say, okay, show me this button, you right click, inspect, there's that button. And let me put it back. Put it So you can see if we hover over it, the Google button or that button is highlighted, so it's a nice one-to-one relationship. All right. So that's how you view the HTML code. So that's the HTML intro, quick intro to HTML. So let's actually start getting into scraping now. So to do this, we're using Chrome, and we're using two different plugins in Chrome. Okay. I'm going to skip the part for installing the plugins. So if you need to do that, just pause the video, and you can, in this PDF document, the directions on how to do it. Basically, this here is a link to this plugin, and then this header here is a link to this plugin. So just click on them, install them, you're good to go. So for the first plugin, it's called Table Capture, and basically it's just a simple copy contents in a table, paste into a spreadsheet. Now you can try doing this manually yourself, just highlighting the table, copy paste into a spreadsheet, and it may or may not work. It's never been consistent over time, and sometimes it also depends on how complicated the table is in the web page. So you can try it. If it doesn't work, I've always had success with this plugin here, so let's give it a shot. So let's go to this election results page. Okay, and if you scroll down to the bottom, there are two tabs, Summary and Details. So let's switch to the Details tab, and you can see it just lists every district, and then it says for the first 5 parties what their voter turnout was, or not turnout, the election results were. Let's capture this table data. So up here, this little icon called Table Capture. Now ideally, if it finds a table, it turns red. But because this table was loaded after the web page initially loaded, it doesn't see it. But if I click on it, then it's like, oh, there is a table here. And it says, look, I found 3 tables. Look, it says I found 3 tables. And the nice thing is when you hover over each of these, it highlights it. So in this case, it's saying this table is this one right here. It gives it a nice orange border around the table, and it highlights it so you know which one each of these tables are. Okay, and this is the table we want. So you have 2 options. You can either just copy it, and then you yourself can paste it into a spreadsheet, or you can go to Google Sheets. And all this does is basically open a new Google Sheet, and then it tells you to paste it in. So let's just do it to see. We have a new Google Sheet. It's still loading, and then it says a little pop-up, just paste. So we paste it in. Paste it in, there we go. So there's our data. We have all the columns, all the rows. Okay? So that's it. It's a simple table, it's a simple plugin, but if your data is in a table, it makes your life simple. One caveat though is if you go to the bottom of the table, you'll see that there's pagination here. So this plugin does not handle pagination. And so if the table, like in this case, says that there's 4 pages, what I recommend doing is just trying to show everything at once. So that way, like all the data is here, so it's saying there's only 1 page, and then do the table capture. Because if you go back to the spreadsheet, you'll see it only did the first 20 rows. It didn't get all 80 or so, so we missed that. So if we do it again, tell it to go, wait for it to load. Paste it in. Now you'll see we have all 74 rows. All right. So if you're going to use this plugin, just make sure all the data is actually being shown before you try and capture it. Okay. So that's it for the first plugin. So second plugin, and as you can see with that first plugin, if you're just copying from a table, you don't need to know HTML. It's simple, copy paste, you're good to go. However, if you're trying to get specific spots on the page, that's where the HTML is needed, and that's where this next plugin can be used. And it's called Data Scraper. One note, when you download it, you do need to create an account to use it, and that's because they have a free version and a paid version. Either way, if you use the free or paid, they actually save all of your scraping code that you make. So no matter where you log into it, your scraping code is there for you to use, which is nice. Basically the difference is, with scraping, there are usually two different types of pages you want to scrape. It's called a list and a details. So if you think of like a real estate website, you have a listing of all the properties. So that's like the list page. If you just want to go and scrape and get all of these properties from this listing page, that's the list scrape. Then the detail scrape is if you actually clicked on one of the listings, and now you have the details for that property. So it's just one property, but you have all the details about it. That's called a detail scrape. And so this lets you do list or details, but the free version does not let you do both together, where you say, okay, here's the list, and then for each item in the list, click on it, and then give me all these details. That's the paid version. Today we're just doing a simple list, so you don't have to worry about that. But if that is something you want to do, you can check out and see if you want to pay for that. Or there's actually other scraper plugins that are actually a little more complicated, so I'm not going to get into that today, but it's free, and it lets you build these connections and just get all the data, and so that's what I usually use. So, moving on, let's see what we're going to scrape. We're going to scrape this site called CSO Georgia, and basically this is just a list of all CSOs in Georgia, and if you click on some of these, you'll see that it has some details here, like the year that it was founded, the director's name, address, phone, web address, email, and then some activity information. But if you click on some of these, enough of these, you'll start to see not every organization has all of the data, so it varies, which makes scraping complicated, because if it's not always there, you have to make sure when you build a scraper that it actually is getting the data you want it to get, whether or not it's there. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to go through, and if you scroll to the bottom, you see there's 56 pages, and it looks like there's about, it says at the top, there's 887 organizations. So we're going to get all of this using this scraper plugin, okay? So first thing we need to do is go up here and click on Data Miner. It's going to give you a little pop-up, and basically this plugin, what they call recipes, is like the scraping code you built for a web page. And so I've already have one on file from doing it previously, but we're going to create a new one. So let's start new, and basically get a little wizard now that we're going to have to go through. So we're going to go through it, and at the end of it, we'll scrape it, and we'll have the data. So let's get started. As you can see, the first item says, is this a list page or is this a detail page? As I explained before, this is a list page because it's a listing of all the items, it's the same information over and over again. So we're selecting list and we're moving on. So if you see the next two items, we have rows and we have columns. And what they call it that is because it's basically defining how it's going to end up in the spreadsheet. So for each item in your list, that is a row in your spreadsheet. And then each data point that we want, that is a column. So the first thing we have to do is define each row, each data point, which is like each organization. And then after we do that, we'll go into the columns and say, okay, this is the specific information in that organization that I want to get. So let's define the organization. To do that, you just click Find, and you get this little pop-up saying, if you notice when you have this pop-up, when you hover over stuff, you get this little orangish peach color highlight. So when you get over it, let's do this organization. When you're ready, you just click the Shift key, and when you do that, you get the border, the dotted border around it. Now, this only gave us the title, but we need the whole block to be highlighted because we need to be able to get all of the organization's information. So if you think of the HTML that we've seen before, it's kind of like a hierarchy. So we're at the title. So we need to go up the chain until we get to the full parent. And there's a nice button here to do that called Select Parent. So we do click it once, and you'll see it made it a little bit bigger around the title, but we still don't have all of the details yet. So let's do it one more time. Select Parent. And now you can see it's around the entire organization with all its information. And that's exactly what we want. Cool. So now the next part you'll see, it says, okay, here's the classes that we found, that it's on this HTML element. And it says that this HTML element is an li tag, it's a list item. So this is where you actually build your selector for your scraper. You have to pick and choose the classes or elements to say, this is exactly what I want. So I usually start with the HTML, so I can actually start at the bottom, then work up. So I'll click the li tag. And if you notice when you click it, everything that is an li tag is now highlighted with a green border. And that's a lot of stuff that's highlighted green. You have the navigation, all these organization names, and then each of the data items inside the organization, and then the pagination at the bottom. Those are all list items. We don't want all of that. So let's try adding the class name. So now together this looks correct. We have the list item for these organization items. And now this looks correct because each of these list items are selected. Nothing else on the page is selected, so we're good to go. So now if you see down here in step 3, this says this is your selector, li.organization item. That's what we want. So we're done. So now we click confirm. So next item is building the columns. So again, this is which data points we want to select for each of the organizations. So let's say for this example, we want to get the organization name, the address, and the email address. Okay, so we're going to have 3 columns. So let's build it. The first column, let's think of the name as the column header. So we'll just call this name. And then extract. This is basically, you're either going to pick text or URL. Most of the time you'll just pick text. URL is if you're getting a link or an email address and you want to get the href element inside that link. So when you get the email address, we're going to use URL. But for the title, we just need the text. Right? Just like in rows, you click find to try to identify what it is you want. So again, we want to start with the title. So you just hover over the title, you click the shift, it highlights it. So now if you look at the elements and classes, you see we have a few options. So if we do just div, a lot of things are highlighted, so maybe not it. So let's try adding the class name into it. It looks a little nicer. Let's see. So adding the icon class doesn't change anything. So basically when you're using this, I say just give all options, like try selecting all the options, like one at a time or combinations until it gets you exactly what it is that you want. There's no like, try this and this and this, just try it until you feel like, okay, yes, that's exactly what I want. And then you're good to go. So I'm just gonna go ahead and for this case, select everything. So if you see at the bottom here, our selector is div.organization slider icon.icon. So click confirm. Okay, so now we have our name. So the next column we need is address. So we're going to add a new column. Give it a name of address. It is text. So we're going to click find and we're going to hover over the address and click shift. Now, if you see here, the only option it gives us is the li tag. And so if you click this, it's going to highlight all of the items in the organization, which we don't want. So this is where these extra selectors of the EQ or the contains comes in handy, because in this case there is no ID or class to help focus it. So what we're going to do is we're going to use contains, because if you see, like if we open up some of these other ones, it always starts with the word address. Okay. Address. address. So we're going to look for the word address. So we're going to we actually have to build this by hand. So you're going to the li is already there. So I'm going to add a colon, type in the word contains, and then address. Now I'm going to do address, space, and the slash, because that's the full beginning of the label. And I'll close it, and then you can see exactly it's getting that data. And if you actually open up some of the other ones, you'll see, okay, yep, address, okay, it seems to be working. Cool, so that's it. So in this case, we only have the li element. So we had to add the selector of contains with the label of address. So this one actually wasn't too painful. So confirm. So now the next one we want is email. So we'll give it a name of email. And because this is a link, because if you hover over it, you can see, oops, hold on. Yeah, if you hover it, you can see it's a link. And in the bottom here, it says it's mail to. And that's what we want to get. So let's use the URL so we can get that href element. So let's hover over just the email address and click Shift. And if you see, this now gives us, it's obviously an A tag, and it has a class of link. But if you notice, in this case, the web address has the exact same class. So just having the A tag and the link is not enough. We need something more. And so again, I think we can use contains and look for the @ symbol. So if you add the word contains with the @ symbol, that's only going to give us the email address. All right. So if we wanted the URL, no, I'm not even going to get into that. So to get the email address, we know it's an A tag, we know it's a link with the link class, and if we add the extra selector of contains with the @ symbol, we got the email address, so now we're done. So now we have our 3 columns of data, we're good to go, and we're almost done. The next one is called nav, and this is the pagination. So if you look at the bottom of the page, it says that there's 56 pages. And so the scraper, you can tell the scraper to go ahead and scrape every single page. And all it needs to know is where's the next button. And that's what this nav option here is for. So if you click find, let's hover over the next button, click shift. So we have some similar options. Yes, that's an A tag, but those are too many links, so we need to filter it down. Next page. All right, so just do a quick look. Okay, nothing else on the page seems to be highlighted, so a.next page is a good selector, so we confirm it. And now at this stage, we're done. So there are other tabs, actions in JavaScript. I'm not going to get into that, that's very advanced. Most likely you'll never need to use it. So go to the Save tab, let's give it a name. I'll call it CSO Georgia. Then click the Save button. Now you get a message it's saved. So now let's go run it. Okay. So it opens up a new window. Uh-oh. And this is a good way to test and see that for some reason the email did not work. So we have the names, we have the address, but for some reason email was not there. So I made a mistake. So what you can do is, this is the recipe we just created. So you can click on edit. It'll take you back into where you were. Let's go to the columns, email address. Oh, because I misspelled the word contains. There we go. All right. Let's save it. Go back. Sweet. So now we have the data. All right. So think of this as a preview. And if you notice, it only shows, it says right here, it shows 16 items, because on this page, it apparently shows 16 items per page. So we have to actually physically tell it to go and scrape every page. But before that, this is a great way just to quickly preview and make sure that your scraper was built properly. As you can see, I misspelled the word contains. And now that I fixed it, everything looks good to go. So this next page button is what you want to click to do the full scrape of all pages. And so there are two options on this page, and I'll start at the bottom and work my way up. The first one says, how many pages do you want to scrape? And so if you remember from the web page here, it says there's 56 pages. And so we're going to say 56. Actually, we're not. If you wanted to scrape the full thing, 56 pages, go for it. But for this example, I'm just going to do 3. So we're not sitting here twiddling our thumbs, drinking coffee while we wait. So then the next one says, how many seconds should we wait before scraping? And why this is important is because sometimes web pages take a long time to load, or maybe your internet connection is slow, and so you don't want the scraper to actually start scraping before the full web page has been loaded. And so by default they say 5. I'm going to go ahead and knock it down to 3. But as you can see, if it was 5 seconds and you did all 56 pages, that's going to take some time. So that's why we're not doing it now. But for this case, we'll just do 3 pages at 3 seconds. And let's start it. And so at the bottom, we have a little status saying, okay, we're going to the next page. There's 2 pages left. 1 page left. And we are done. Cool. So let's close it. And now, if you see, it says up here we've downloaded a total of 64 items. Okay? Because we only did 64. Okay, I guess it actually did 4 pages. So we can download it as either CSV or Excel. I'll go ahead and do Excel. Then if we open the file, just to make sure it actually worked. So, let's see everything here. Okay, so we have names, we have addresses, we have emails. And if you see like here, this specific organization did not have an email address. Okay, now we have the data, but we need to do some cleaning. Okay, so you can just do a quick like replace all to get rid of this like this address label, because this does not give us anything. So you can just do the find and replace. So the find, I'm going to do address with a slash, replace it with nothing. So replace all. And then you can do the same thing with the email. We're going to take out this mail to label. So find mail to, replace it with nothing, replace all. And now we got a pretty good looking data set. So at this point, you'd save it and do whatever it is you want to do with the data. Alright, so let me close this. That is your intro to scraping. So there are 2 plugins. One, the first one we did, just copy paste of a table, very simple. The second one, this, what do they call it? Data miner, data scraper. It lets you do more powerful things, but you do have to be a bit familiar with HTML. Okay, so if you're doing this again later, in the PDF I have links to some web pages that just like give you some introductions to HTML and try and get you more comfortable with it. But that's it for intro to scraping. With this, you can scrape many pages. You don't need to know programming or anything like that. With these 2 plugins, you can probably scrape almost anything you would need to do. So before we finish, so in this PDF, I didn't show it, but all the steps we did here is outlined in this PDF. So if you got lost, or if you go back later and you want to do it again as exercise, maybe instead of just name, address, email, you want to add phone or something else, go through here if you need help. Alright? So, 2 exercises for you, so just to give you more practice. The first is this BBC page. It's just a simple list of news items, and they actually built it nicely so that each of these news blocks throughout this entire web page, they all start with the same class. And so you can easily grab all of these news items and scrape it. And so what I want you to do is I want you to scrape it and get the title, the summary, the category, and the link to the story. And just to show you what's what, this is the title, this here is the summary, this is the category, and then for the link, you can just use the title because it's a link, and then just pull out the href. All right? So you can do that and just grab this entire page. For exercise 2, we're going back to the selections page, where we're going to use the summary tab. And so now you're going to scrape this table. And this table, as you can see, it's not just a simple table. It has lots of information in it. So you can't use just the data scraper or the table capture plugin. You have to build it by hand. And so I want you to capture all this information on here. So first is just the district name. But then you have, for each district, you have the top 2 parties that won, or the top 2 parties. The first one is the winner, the second one is the one that came in second place. So you need to grab each of their names, and then for each of these parties, the number of votes they got, what percent that was, okay? So it shows it both. And then at the end, we have the total voter turnout for this district in both numbers and percent. So each of these little items are going to be their own columns. So I think total, if we go back, yeah, so these are all the columns that you're going to get with that scraper. All right, so give it a try. I'll give you some practice of just repeating and just getting familiar with it. We will have a PDF with the answers to it. There's more than one way to do it, so I just showed you how I decided to do it in this other PDF. And that's it. So good luck with scraping. I hope this was helpful, and thanks for watching.